My name is Richard Morellis, and I want to welcome you to the Prison Post. This is your podcast for conversations surrounding the need to reform prisons from the perspective of formerly incarcerated people, community members, and leaders in the restorative justice movement. The Prison Post will feature an episode every Wednesday with people who are in the fight to restore lives and heal communities. Welcome to the Prison Post. My name is Richard Morellis. This week, our guests are some of the greatest people I've ever known in my life. I've known them for about 9 years now. I hope I can do justice to drawing out the value of who they are and what they do. They're a remarkable team and are truly changing the world one person at a time. Jim Micheletti and Mirassou direct campus ministry at Palma School, an all-male college preparatory school in Salinas, California. Palma is an Edmund Rice Christian Brothers school, networked with schools across the globe. The mission at Palma is for boys of promise to become men of character. A Catholic school, Palma challenges students to be the change they wish to see in the world. An essential element at Palma is for students to stand in solidarity with those marginalized by poverty and injustice. Jim and Mia lead immersion experiences with students to Mexico and Peru to build homes. Locally, students load and deliver food and other goods to migrant farm workers in the Salinas Valley. Students visit the elderly with Alzheimer's and contribute head, heart, and hands in a long list of causes for peace and justice. For the past 9 years, Palma has partnered with Soledad State Prison with their exercises and empathy program. In this program, Palma students and their brothers in blue read literature, share their own transformational stories, and build a no excuses mindset. World-renowned journalist Lisa Ling recently filmed a documentary on this unique partnership for her show, This Is Life, which will air soon on CNN. Palma enjoys a productive relationship with the Crop organization in the business of hope. Jim and Mia, welcome to the Prison Post. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, normally, I'm not the only host here. We have my co-host, Jason Bryan, as well. And he couldn't make it this morning because obviously his wife, well, it's not too obvious to our audience, but to you two, you know that his wife has been in labor this evening. And this morning, she gave birth to a beautiful boy, Tristan Kobe Bryant. And normally I'd be able to post it to the screen, but I'll have to do it a little bit later. Let me see if I can show it here.
Oh my gosh.
There he is.
Congrats,
Wow,
Jason. And
what
Sandy.
a blessing. That's great.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Great way to start. Thank you.
That was them just a few, literally like 2 hours ago.
Wow.
So we want to welcome Tristan Kobe Bryant to the world. We're ecstatic. Brother Jason was incarcerated for over 20 years, and to come out and have his second child is just nothing short of a miracle.
Awesome.
That's a great way to start. Wow.
Need a little more light in this world today.
Just got it.
Oh, for sure. So congratulations, Jason and Sandy.
Congratulations.
Can't
We're
wait.
happy little Jax has a big brother now.
Yeah, that's right. What a cute kid.
You guys know Jason well. We'll talk about some of the ways that you were able to build a relationship with Jason, and I just mentioned a little bit in your bio about Lisa Ling and how the three of you happened to connect in a way that was truly unprecedented in the state of California. But Jim, I know you love quotes, and you've probably shared so many of them that Mia is probably tired of hearing some of them. But
Okay.
there's no.
Nah.
Never get tired.
No.
Jim was the guy who got me into keeping a book like this everywhere I go, so I could write down notes. You got a few of those handy? Oh, you too, huh? Okay.
Books.
Yep. Always got to be ready to take down a note, a quote, some type of memorable experience. And anyways, yeah. But I know you love quotes. There's a famous John C. Maxwell quote. He says, "It takes teamwork to make the dream work."
Amen.
And I know that you guys are one of the best teams that I've ever come to know in my life. And I wanted to know a little bit of the background there. Would you be willing to share with our audience? Our audience is largely made up of the loved ones of the incarcerated, family and friends who care about restorative justice. And how did you guys first come to start working together? And what's a little bit of your background story?
Well, thank you for that. What a great introduction, too. I really appreciate that. And of course, what a great way to begin with Jason. You know, Jason Bryant, he often says, I experience you. When he talks about people, he says, I experience you. And we like to think of all people as an experience, right? All people are sacred. And it's good to know that the carceral population and people dealing with mass incarceration, that we stand with them right now in this broadcast here. So thank you for that. But I'll let Mia, and oh, by the way, we do have masks. We don't have our mask on right now because we've been working together in a very close office long before the coronavirus came. So, but we are responsible that way. But I think Mia should speak to how we first met and got launched together. That might be good.
Okay.
For sure. Mia.
It started when my middle son was, I think, a sophomore at Palma, and came home and said that, hey, I have an opportunity to go to Peru. And so my husband and I were like, oh, okay. And through that process of trying to do fundraising for the students to get there, I met Jim. And we just I offered one day, hey, do you need some help? And he was like, yes, that'd be great. So I started to volunteer, a day here, a day there. And then the volunteer turned into a couple paid days. And then it just kind of escalated from there because we were able to just kind of grow the program, not just with the immersions, but with the service that we offer the kids, either after school or different times of the year. So it just was something that evolved into a bigger and better thing. And I'm very, very lucky because I'm one of those people that I love the job I do. A lot of times it's not a job. There's a lot of paperwork, but I really do enjoy my job. I'm very, very grateful.
I noticed that some of the things that you shared in some of our back and forth before this conversation was that you had 3 sons actually attend Palma, and it was there at Palma that you found your vision, you found your passion.
Yeah, I have 3 boys. My youngest is 21. I've got 25 and 27-year-olds. And I think, or maybe 28, I don't know, I can't remember. And they've all gone to Palma. When Jim came to campus, my oldest did not experience Jim being the campus minister at that time. But when Jim arrived, everything changed. And like I said, I was kind of oblivious of what was going on until my son Henry came home and started kind of revving up on what Jim was offering as far as service programs. And then my youngest, Oliver, I'm really, really excited because he was able to go not only to Mexico, Peru, but he was also able to participate in the prison exercise and empathy. And to be able to share that with him was really profound. And my oldest has also been able to come in a couple of times as well.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Jim. You had something?
Yeah, Richard, I'm thinking of Henry Mirassou, Mia's son. One thing that he got involved in right off the bat was we would go after school every week to a place called the Center for Life. And actually, it's a safe haven for students in a gang-stressed part of Salinas who get some help after school. And they would go and we would tutor the kids and they get a snack and that kind of thing. And they'd be off the streets. And Henry was very dutiful with that, among other things we would do. And then lo and behold, he goes off to university, studies child psychology, education. Now he's getting a master's degree. And so one thing I appreciate that God gives us is planting seeds. You never know what experience the student's going to have. It's going to launch a whole life direction for them. And we really believe in the classroom of the world. Some of our best experiences for kids and with kids happen not in classroom walls, but in the classroom of CTF Soledad Prison, or at the Center for Life, or Peru, or Mexico, or with our good friend Richard here.
We want to talk about that for sure. But I noticed that you shared the immersion experiences, and someone once said that you can always tell what someone's vision is by looking at their actions. So when I hear that the actions of Palma School and some of the service work that you guys have been a part of, to travel to Peru, to take students to Peru, to take students to Mexico, and to visit patients with Alzheimer's disease, to feed farm workers in the Salinas Valley, and just all those things. But speak to the immersion experiences. What are those, and how did that first start?
Do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, immersion, first of all, we like to call it immersion. There's a language of mission, and mission is fine. And to be a missionary, we understand that. But sometimes mission or campus ministry even carries the connotation of we have it and we're going to give it to those poor people who don't have it. And that's antithetical to kind of who we are and what we believe. Immersion seems to capture the idea better of taking people out of their comfort zones and taking them to the developing world, which sometimes might even be just across the street or a different part of town, right? An experience far different from their own, and walk with the people. It's not service to so much as doing with. So when we go to Mexico and Peru, the solidarity piece really is building with families and getting to know families. And, we're trying to build relationships as much as we are as home. People definitely need homes. They need the dignity of space. We get that. But the greater dignity is being heard and standing with people as equals. And so it's really important in Mexico and Peru that the families are involved in the construction. So when we're hammering or nailing, we want the families there involved. We don't want them standing off. We want to do for people. We want to do with people. It's really about that piece.
That sounds amazing. What was some of your most memorable experiences of working with families in that way?
Oh gosh, so many. Do you want to start?
I knew that was going to come. I don't really have a one specific, but my favorite part of the immersions, because we've been to Peru, I believe, 7 times, and Mexico 8 or 9 times. And for me, my favorite part is always the reflection at the end of the day, because that's where you really get to see and hear what the students have experienced. And I always learn from them, because you're seeing it through a different set of eyes, ears, smells. They talk about everything that they discovered that day. And it's really a transformation that I'm very grateful I get to witness. And then to see them grow and appreciate everything around them when they come home, as well as appreciating these new relationships that they've made with these families. And most of the families that we've come encounter with, whether it is Mexico or Peru, when we go back, we always reconnect with them. Wow. And so it's an ongoing relationship, which is wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. There's another quote that says, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. Yeah. And even though they may be different barriers through at times, but the greatest barrier, in my opinion, that breaks down all walls that separate is love. And to have somebody come and help them, not build the home for them, but build a home with them is just a phenomenal thing. And to go so many times, when you were saying that you've gone 7 times and 9 times, what I thought about was one of the stories that I read in the Bible was about Moses when God told him go. And you guys have gone to Peru, to the inner city, to Mexico, and even to Soledad, where I spent 18 years and 2 months. And I for sure want to talk about that. But real quick, I know people out here, including people in my own family, and no knock on them, but I mean, their kids, it would be hard to get them off their phone, and Xbox or PlayStation for a few hours. How do you motivate high school students to leave out there for the amount of time, and how long are you guys out there?
Well, we do take their phones when they get there.
When they get there, tech-free zone, man. We park that stuff. But I think, Richard, having been at this for a while and having been humbled and having fallen down a lot, we learn from our falling down. We kind of fall up in the world, right? We learn from those lessons. And I think in terms of, it's kind of evangelization, really, is like how we kind of win people to this idea of advocacy and love of others and love of neighbor. We do it the same way you're doing it right now, is I think through a smile and through joy. There's so many really profound moments of deep joy. And I would say joy over happiness. Joy implies something different. It's got more staying power. And that's what we hear from the kids who go, the kids who park their technology and give human beings face to face a chance and hear their stories. They walk away transformed, and there's a deeper kind of heart smile that stays with them because of that. And they're more likely when they're back in their hometowns, when they see the person homeless asking for help, they're more likely to engage the person. Whether or not you give the money, that's your choice. That's fine. I get that. But at least engage the person with a smile and recognize the person's humanity and hear that person's story, right? It's the silence, no conspiracies of silence that get people in trouble. I did want to tell one quick story, if I can, about Peru.
Sure.
It's nothing but a story gathering event. So many things happen that are so profound and transformational. But for me, we were in a very poor area called Hicamarca. People there are literally dirt poor. They will sometimes take tires and light them on fire and to crack the rocks in the hillside where they put up a little shanty, a little shed, and that shed becomes their prized home. We were in a neighborhood like that one time, carving into a hillside, trying to create more space for a man named Jose and his son, Kevin. While we were doing that, we didn't really know it, but Jose's wife was dying in the next shack over from leukemia. She was in her 40s, and we had just met this family. And so here we are working, we're digging, we're sweating, we're doing good muscular ministry, as I'd call it, I love that with the guys. And then he said, hey, go over. I want you to say goodbye to my wife. Say hello to her and say goodbye. She's dying of leukemia. I had just met this man.
Wow.
And so we went over, and she's lying on a mattress on a floor on this basic concrete pad. And she was so gracious to us. She smiled. We held her hand, and the family was around. And instantly, these people who are the dirt poor had dignified us in their most serious time when a loved one is going to die at a young age. I'll never forget that. I was schooled in deep humanity at that moment. And she passed. And the sad irony is, where you live often decides whether you live. If she were in the States, she would have had a hospital and cancer treatment and all kinds of things. But because she's poor, none of that happened. She dies. But she died with so much dignity and love, and to be included in that love was one of the more profound experiences of my life.
Oh, wow. That's phenomenal. And I think about how that story impacted you. You carry it with you today, able to share it. What about the students? Do you have some stories of seeing how this impacted their life, where they've gone on maybe to college to live in the real world or some type of a vocation, and now they're living their life in a way that's giving back? Do you see that often?
Yeah, we do. Do you want to speak to one? I have a few.
I know that my oldest was able to come to Mexico on one of our Mexico immersions. We never were allowed to, not allowed, but we didn't send him when he was in high school. So he was able to come a couple times while he was in college, and then after he graduated as well. So, and that was good to share because he got an opportunity to share those experiences, and we've had other alumni come back. The trip to Mexico, we also get other families, their parents, dads, moms will come with us as well. So a lot of times it becomes a family thing, not just taking the students. And there's always, again, in that reflection, there's always a transformation of wanting to, and at some point in their lives, they do make a difference. And we've heard time and time again that is one of their favorite parts of being at Palma. There was, that was the best part of Palma for them, whether they went to Mexico, Peru, or both.
Richard, awesome. You're a fan of quotes, as you know I am. Thank you for remembering that. And there's that line, I think it's St. Augustine, who said, pray not for a lighter load, but for stronger shoulders. And we intentionally disturb kids. When we go to Mexico or Peru in particular, they're way out of their comfort zones. And in Peru, they do hard labor. It's not just work, it's real labor. In fact, we have to build homes in these up these steps. There's no roads where we are. And so the city has put in steps for people to access their little shanties, their little sheds. And so we have to carry all the equipment up sometimes 150, 200 steps before we assemble these homes. And the kids are doing it. And the kids are schlepping bags of concrete up these steps, the whole deal. And it's the hardest work they've ever done in their life. And many of them will reflect on that. Like, work is love made visible, especially when you're working for the benefit of others, purely and cleanly. And I know Mark Beach, I'll celebrate Mark Beach, one of our students. One time we were carrying a wall up these steps, and the steps, excuse my language, that they've got dog shit on them. It's dusty, it's dirty, we're slipping. There's low electricity wires because people will sometimes tap the city electricity with coat hangers, and they often will shock themselves to death doing it. But it's really primitive an electrical grid, and you see low wires. So we've got dog crap on the steps. You've got low tension electrical wires. You're sweating. You're trying to carry this thing up these steep steps. And lo and behold, Mark Beach is moving the backside of the wall, and a wild dog runs up and grabs his pant leg and starts yanking his pant leg. And I'm trying to hold the wire with a 2x4 so my kids don't get shocked. And I'm going, man, Palma, God bless Palma. This is the real grit. This is the dirty Christ on the hill. This is the real thing, right? Like, they'll never forget that. And Mark Beach, who was being attacked by a dog, and thankfully he didn't get into his flesh. Next thing we know, he goes to Notre Dame University, and he's off to Africa, doing work there, working with the poor. He climbs Kilimanjaro. He goes off to Israel, and his life's on a permanent kind of adventure, trying to elevate humanity. And I want to think, again, by the grace of God and the goodness of this Palma School vision we've been blessed to be a part of, that seed was planted there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Steps.
Definitely. There's a verse also that says, one man plants, another waters, but God brings the increase. In the restorative justice movement, we hear that the term, the school to prison pipeline. And it seems like at Palma School, based on my experience with you guys and the stories that you guys created something really special there that could be carried over to other schools. It seems like there's a school to college pipeline going on there. So what types of things you've talked about, the service ministry aspect, and that seems to have a lasting impact. But what are the types of things is Palma doing to cultivate students going to college instead of into the lifestyle, sort of like I did, culminating with prison term, the drugs, violence? How are you guys getting a hold of them in a different way than some of the other schools?
I would say, it's really important at Palma that we are intentional about every student knowing his worth. Every boy at our campus counts, and we show that continually with handshakes, and we insist on handshakes, and we insist on a good handshake. I like to call it a culture of handshake. And obviously, we've been very challenged by social distancing, because everything at Palma School is designed really to smash social distancing. We gather in our chapel in prayer, and the guys, exchange signs of peace. Again, we encourage guys, sit up straight, square shoulders, be confident, listen. And the expectation is one of respect. And know that you are created in the image and the likeness of a God who is love, who has gifted you with great promise. And so find out what your unique contribution to the world is going to be, and know how powerful that is. And I think a lot of character education boils down to young men, particularly at our school, because we're all guys, but I would say the same of young women, is find the God light within you. You have something special to give that's powerful and good and pure. Realize that about yourself. We see that in you, and we're going to see it in you until you see it in yourself. We're going to see it in you until you see it in yourself. I think that's kind of the essence of character education, if I'm reading it right, which is very important to us at Palma.
Yeah, I think about a book that I read about the life of a former NFL defensive lineman called Season of Life. It was about a man. I've shared a little bit of his story with you, Joe Ehrman. Mm-hmm. And he said that, a lot of us are growing up, and I can relate to this. We were taught something the opposite of what you were sharing right now. And it was, that statement, that a statement that shapes so many boys in America, which is be a man. And it's never defined. It's never defined. Well, what you get when you get from that statement is, men don't cry, suck it up, don't be soft, don't be a sissy, don't be this, don't be that. It's always framed around a don't, but it's not framed around a do. And I think in so many ways we try to live up to this false idea of what it means to be a man. But it seems to be going on in Palma there, based on the results of Transformed Lives, is they're getting a true idea of what it means to be a man. Joe Ehrman lined it out in several ways. He says, what does it mean to be a man? It speaks to how you live and how you love, your character and your love. And then he says, and beyond that, living for a cause that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And you're connecting them to causes that are bigger than themselves in their local community, in other countries. And I think that does something special. So many more need that. And I think other schools could adopt it. It doesn't have to be all about funds, but there could be other ways besides it could be volunteer.
Right.
Yeah, Richard, you and your brothers, particularly when we were inside and engaged a lot, and I heard you speak inside CTF Soledad, and you would quote Ehrman, and you would talk about toxic masculinity. And, Ehrman's big on the 3 Bs of the other side. The downside is pulling on men, saying it's all about the billfold, the bedroom, and the ball field, right? The billfold, the bedroom, and the ball field. If you succeed in those things, then you're going to be that real man. You're going to be a man, right?
Right.
And those come up empty. You can't target your life on that and feel like you're going to have any meaningful purpose, right? I think your man Ehrman is one of those prominent voices in character education that we need more of in education entire, for sure.
Yeah, I think as young men, there's something he talks about that we compare and compete, and compare, like you said, the billfold, compare the ball, who's a better athlete. And you can be a better athlete, but that doesn't make you a better man. You
Right.
can have more money, but that doesn't make you a better man. So I've seen, go ahead, Mia.
So I was just saying that you're compare and compete, but the compassion part is missing.
Right.
Exactly. So we need to build up that compassion aspect. And you guys do that through your program called Exercises in Empathy. And I like to share that one of the books that impacted me the most while I was incarcerated for 21 years was a book called The Criminal Personality. And what it said is that when people are committing crimes, they're cutting off empathy. And it's very, I don't think it ever happens that if you're empathizing with someone, you're not committing a crime against them. You're not robbing from someone. You're not taking from someone, because, Jim, everyone knows the definition of empathy, which is putting yourself in another person's shoes and experiencing what they're experiencing. But I remember you sharing another definition is your pain in my heart. Your pain in my heart. If I was going to take something from a store, steal from a store, rob somebody, if I considered in that moment what it would cause them and the ripple effect that it would have on the store, the clerk, on other people's lives and their family, the long-term effects, I wouldn't do it. And so we cut off empathy. But like you said, putting compassion into these young men, how do you do that? You open up the channel of empathy. So would you talk about how, Mia, at first, when did you guys start going into Soledad State Prison, also known as Correctional Training Facility C, to do your Exercises in Empathy program? What's the story? How did you guys come up with that?
We were kind of tipped off by our local mayor, Dennis Donahue, had got a hold of Jim and said there's a gentleman, was it Borla, Lieutenant Borla. And so we called him up and asked if we could come in, and I'll never forget that day. Walking into the gym, and there's over 100 men in blue there, and we sat down and we talked, and we kind of came up. It was very organic of how it all happened. We came up with this program. Life Cycle was very welcoming to be a part of their program, and we sort of did a collaboration of going in, doing readings or writings or discussing quotes. It all based around literature. And we started going in, bringing in a few students. Every now and then some parents would show up. We'd bring in some staff members, community members, and it just continued to snowball from there. And so far, it's one of the most proud things I have that I'm a part of in my life, because other than my kids, I feel like this is a very profound thing, and it's gotten bigger than we've ever dreamed and hoped, and we just hope to keep pushing along, and we'd like to get it into other facilities. But I'll let Jim speak more. I know he's itching to.
Yeah, Jim, would you share a little bit about the structure, how it works, and the format? And the first one that I remember was we were reading John Steinbeck's book of Mice and Men. I don't know if you did one before that, but what was the if there was one before that, what was it, and how many have you done since then? And what's the structure of the program? How's it working?
Well, we were very I keep using this word intentional, but a lot of thought went into this. That literature is really important, because our students, obviously at a college prep, they have to read literature. We all have that high school experience of reading books, and sometimes we connect with it if the teacher's effective, and a lot of times we don't. Kids will kind of fake their way through the book. And I thought, from my students' perspective, how can we repurpose or revalue literature in a way that's really going to be meaningful to students? And I found that students going in to read Of Mice and Men or The Grapes of Wrath and sitting in little groups, because we sit in little families. So when we go in the prison, Life Cycle had this all in place for us. Everything that we were able to accomplish, because so much good work had been done by the guys inside, right, from the ground up. We simply grafted ourselves onto their program, and they allowed that to happen. But the literature was powerful. So we share a book and we break off into families, usually 8 to 10, maybe 12 people in a circle, and discuss questions based on that literature. And I saw the literature coming alive in a way it wouldn't in a classroom. And I can give you an example of that. One of the more profound moments I have from the prison that I will never forget is we were reading The Grapes of Wrath, Steinbeck's epic book, The Grapes of Wrath. And The Grapes of Wrath is about a parolee, right? Tom Joe gets out of McAllister State Penitentiary in Oklahoma. It's like the very beginning of the book. He's getting out of the pen and he's on the road with his family who are fleeing the Dust Bowl. Terrible drought comes in Oklahoma. The family has to pack up and go, and he's trying to get reunited with his family. And I remember we were reading about that early in the book, and a guy, one of our brothers in blue, stood up. We were talking about the drought and the Dust Bowl. And he said this, and this is something you would not hear in a high school or college English classroom. He said, Tom, the Dust Bowl, the drought, all that. When I shot that guy and that other gang, I put his entire family in a drought for the rest of their lives. And I paused and I listened to that, and I looked at my students, and they were leaning in it in a way I typically do not see students lean in class. And what he was doing was he was teaching metaphor, the drought as a metaphor for something bigger than the physical event back then, right? We all find ourselves in drought at a time. And he was showing empathy. He was saying that he had gotten to the point in his rehabilitation where he was very aware of the impact of his crime on others. And for me as an educator, I thought, what a beautiful example of teaching empathy to other people, because you could see the emotion in his face when he was talking about putting their whole family in a drought, right? And I know the men inside, particularly in Life Cycle, Phoenix Alliance, I can name a lot of programs, and to go to board, they've got to write letters of contrition. They've got to sit down and pen and think hard and sincerely about the people they've hurt. I want our students to think hard about their impact on others and people they may be hurting they're not aware of, particularly when it comes to race, socioeconomics, class. Can you feel another person's pain in your heart? Are you willing to carry some of that? And can you carry it joyfully? That's the challenge, right?
I was able to participate in some of the exercises, empathy, families and small groups. And I remember sitting there with 5 or 6 of my incarcerated brothers in blue and seeing that we probably had 200 or 300 years to life amongst us. And here we are sitting with 3 or 4 10th, 11th, 12th graders. And we're reading Of Mice and Men. I remember The Grapes of Wrath, and I remember that at the culmination of Grapes of Wrath, we were able to watch the movie in a big screen in the gym there. Something that I don't know if that had happened in 20 years in Soledad before, pulling down the dusty big screen and watching it in the gym, and to be able to watch that with the students and people bringing in a popcorn and just cheering and watching the movie and seeing how it related to our lives. But for me, it had a profound impact on empathy. Sitting in the group, I remember a young man named Kevin. He was in 10th grade, and we're reading this book together. And he is going in there with the express purpose of adding value to our lives. A 10th grader is going into the prison saying, I want to give to these guys something. Then they always say, we want to share something with you guys, but we got something out of your lives.
Yes.
And and I said, well, what do you want to do when you get older? What do you want to do with your career? And he's like, international business. And that was something that I never heard of. The only international business I ever heard of was some nefarious type stuff. So, so I was really impressed, but I noticed that all the lifers amongst there, on the main line, when you're on the everyday prison life, probably empathy isn't the go-to emotion to express on a daily basis. Empathy is something you want to, because of the toxic male environment, you want to not talk about emotions and feelings and all that. But once guys get amongst those students, something happens, and the community becomes the method of transformation, because they say, I don't want this young man to grow up like I did. I don't want him to think like I did. And so they begin to tap into their empathy, and something really profound happened at Soledad. So much so that you guys eventually caught the ear of Lisa Ling, and she came and did a story on it. I'd like to hear about that. But first, Jim or Mia, what was your experience of like Jason says, what was your experience? What was your experience of the students going in for the first time, or every time you guys go, when they go in, what they're thinking versus what they're thinking after that first one or the second one?
I think a lot of times, because we usually ask them when they've gone in for the first time, like, what did you think? And a lot of times we hear, well, I was a little bit afraid. It was kind of scary. But the minute they get in those small circles, it just all falls. And it's one of those programs. And this is one of the things that we tried to express with Lisa Ling. Until you go in and experience, it's a very hard thing to explain. Because she kept, what are you guys doing, and how does it work? And it's like, you just have to come and see. And so gratefully, she was able to send a few of her producers out, and then it became very clear. But it's one of those experiences you definitely need to be in the space. But usually, most of the time, the kids come in, I would say 99.9% of the time, they're itching to get back in. And it's not because, I get to go into the prison. It's, I want to get back into my small family. And we don't call them circles. When they're not called groups. We are a family, and you've got your small families, and then we've got the big family, and they are very adamant about making sure that you don't associate it as a group. It's family, and these guys have an immediate connection to our brothers in blue, and it's just for me, I just like sitting back and watching the whole thing happen, because every time we go in, Jim and I will walk out of there and go, that's got to be one of the best times we've ever had. And then next week we go in, that's got to be the best time. And so it just keeps getting better and better.
Mia said, come and see, and we're really deliberate about that come and see spirituality, the experiential component. I'm so glad when CNN came out that they sent the directors first, we were able to get them inside, and they agreed right away, wow, we got to get the cameras and record this remarkable relationship unfolding here. But again, you need the sounds of the gates. You need the constant kind of buzz of the prison. I don't need to tell you about the sounds of the prison, but there's this constant hum going on, right? Of activity and feet shuffling in the hallway and all that. And I don't want to talk too much about it and take you back to a place you're done with. But there's definitely, a sensory thing going on there that kids need to tap into to really understand it. And I think a lot of education really kind of works that way. We read out of books, we talk about ideas in the classroom, but do people really kind of get the idea? There's so much to be learned by actually being there and being present, and particularly in an environment like that. And that's what we hear from kids too, like a lot of the students will say, just come, you got to come now. And they invite their parents, and they invite their friends. And now we've got, when we go in there, we have to say, well, we can't keep taxing the prison. We can't take 100 people in. And we're giving the warden a great problem. Hey, we got all these people who want to come in and learn, and build family. That's what we're talking about. It's really an emerging solidarity. And who would ever have thought that college prep and men, a lot of them serving life sentences, would have so much to say and learn from each other? Who would have thought that? That's so hopeful.
Yes, it is. Jim, I think about some of the audience members maybe hearing this right now. It's like, man, I don't know if I would send my son into a prison. They have these ideas from the 80s of the Scared Straight programs and things like that certainly don't work. And exercises in empathy is the complete opposite, totally antithetical to anything like that. But would you talk about the young man who was so impacted that he ended up going on to Yale and studying political science? And you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Nick and Tony, right? In fact, we know the Tony family well, brilliant parents, brilliant kids with huge hearts. And he was very much inspired by it. He was part of the first wave that went in, and he created a little book. He was really the force behind it. He and Mark Beach, some other students obviously played a role, but he was the editor. We had a little booklet called Brokenness and Blessings. And it was student writings on their relationship with their fathers, and it was inmate, our brothers in blue, writing on the relationships with fathers. And we kept all the passages, all the little anecdotes in there, all these little paragraphs, page-long writings, anonymous. So you didn't know if you were reading about a college prep student's relationship with his father or somebody inside a prison, his memories of his relationship with his father. We did that on purpose. Now, sometimes you could tell, obviously, by the writing,
Right.
but it was a really powerful thing. And I think Nick gained a lot of traction from that. Next thing you know, when he went off to Notre Dame University, he was involved working with carceral populations in different places. It stayed with him. You know, one thing I often say is, can you say you've really learned something if you don't remember it afterward? A lot of times we sit in class, we're taking notes, and a lot just goes in, maybe comes out for the test and is gone. This one stays with them. The guys go in there and they remember, and they're going to go on to positions of power. Kids who go through Palma, they're going to be power players. They're going to be legislators. They're going to be CEOs. They're going to be in those positions, and they're going to run those positions of power with a sense of the powerless and people who've been marginalized, and hopefully run those positions of power by being more inclusive and loving, kind, and democratic.
One of the things we find too, Richard, is a lot of the guys that graduate from Palma, when they come back, whether it's for a spring break or whatever, and they know that we're going in, they always ask to go back in. So it's not just the students. They come back as alumni wanting to go back into the program because they know how profound it was when they were there.
One last thing, Richard, too. I'm sorry. You got me caffeinated. You got me caffeinated, Richard.
Let's go.
You said, the parents who say, boy, I don't know if I want my kid going inside a prison. And thankfully, we haven't had too much of that. But I would challenge a parent and say, to a large degree, your son already is in a prison. There's a lot of contamination in society. A lot of society is confining your young man in a mindset about the bedroom, the billfold, the ballroom, and that being exclusively what male identity is about. We go inside the prison to find freedom. And the freedom is that I am deeply connected with my brothers in there. We are one human family, and people cannot be thrown away. To throw away men in prison is to throw myself away. That's where we're trying to go morally.
Thank you for sharing that, Jim. I always say that I had to get free in there before I could be free out here. And one of the things that I want to share along the lines of this book reading project is that before going to prison, I never read a full book on my own. And I don't remember reading one book in high school or junior high. I had to go back to like third grade to even remember a teacher reading a book out loud to us. I don't remember any books, and I didn't read a whole book before going to prison. But while I was there, I was able to get a hold of books, and I made a goal to read 500 books. And I don't say that in an arrogant or prideful way, but I surpassed that goal and went on to, nearly get my bachelor's degree and read 700 books or so. But, I was in prison for 21 years, as I shared. And when you guys came in, something beautiful began to happen with book reading. You would see guys walking up and down the corridor with books in their hands, and everybody's talking about this story. And I remember of Mice and Men, the story about Lenny and how the book ends and what he chooses to do to his friend to, in a way, save his life, and the conversation that it sparks in there. And people, if those who really care about restorative justice and true rehabilitation, know that it begins with changing someone's heart, changing someone's way of thinking, and the exercise in empathy truly does that. And the other thing is you talk about you and Mia. It's not just you and Mia going in, but your faculty and a lot of the family members of the students and a lot of the parents of the students. And one thing that I remember about you guys and about Palma is that you guys dignified us and treated us as humans. And that's very rare in prison. I could count on one hand when I experienced that from anybody who was not incarcerated in there, to smile at us, to talk to us. Mia, the motherly touch, the encouragement that you have, that is an empowering feeling. A lot of people would think, well, what are they doing in there? These guys should be punished. That punishment model doesn't work. But what works is caring, love, compassion, empathy. And you guys are bringing that into us, and in turn, receiving it back as well. And just a profound transformation has happened. So what happened when Lisa Ling came, and when does her story come out? And what were you able to capture with her?
Lisa Ling is fierce. She's fierce compassion, and I was suspicious, Hollywood, you connect names, you think, it's glitter, it's prize, it's fluff, whatever. I started watching some of her material, which is really steeped in social justice. She's got a vision. And ironically, the first contact I had with Lisa Ling was through, Jason Bryant and you and Crop and the guys we know inside. But there was a phone call one day, and I'll let Mia explain because it was kind of funny. I was teaching.
Oh, and there was a message. Hey, this is Lisa Ling. Wondering about your program. And so I ran to his classroom, and he's teaching, and I'm banging on the door. He's like, what? I'm like, Lisa Ling, she left a message. She She wants to do a show on us. So, and then from there, like Jim was saying, she's so well known. You just never know what to expect from people of fame, and she has got to be one of the most down to earth and fierce. I don't know how she sleeps, because she has got so much compassion for so many different things. And I just so grateful that she has, latched onto a liking to our program, and just, such an advocate for what we're doing. And we're very, very grateful for her and her producers and directors and everybody that was involved in that filming. It was, again, they're part of our family now, and we're texting, how you guys doing, and on each other's Instagram. And it's been a really great relationship. And we're really, really looking forward to when that airs.
Yeah,
we don't know yet.
It'll be powerful, Richard. And I credit the power to our brothers in blue and these fine Palma students who come from really good parents. We're just a conduit. We connect great people together and sit back and go, how wonderful it is, But it's so powerful, actually. Lisa Ling said she went to her producers and was trying to maybe even get more time or a longer filming or whatever, because this one touched her uniquely. She's been very clear on that a number of times in front of camera, how powerful this was. So she's been in 14 different prisons. She's traveled around the world, visiting carceral populations to different places. But she says what happened there at CTF Soledad, what was recorded there, was like for her the event. Very powerful. I can think of so many guys inside who gave her artwork and greeted her, and she was blown away by the environment. And you and Jason and Ted, and I can go on and on. James Willick. I can name so many of our brothers in blue who really created something special at CTF Soledad. We just pray, alas, and it grows, because it's peaceful, it's profound, it's rehabilitation, it's restorative justice at its finest, right? And all heart goes out to the men inside. I just hope they're given the voice and respect for the human beings they are, making amends in profound ways.
Ted is my closest friend. Ted Gray, he's also the executive director of the Crop Organization. And Lisa Ling and her husband, Dr. Paul Song, went to visit him inside San Quentin before he was commuted by the governor. And he spent a good part of the visit sharing about Palma, the exercises in empathy, his co-defendant and brother, Jason Bryant. And she was intrigued. She started, like you said, with the students leaning in. She leaned in and she pursued the story. And she's come to know Jason, and part of the filming had to do with the life of Jason. Would you talk about how you were able to talk to the warden and this unprecedented thing of the warden allowing two guys in blue who are incarcerated to leave the prison to go speak at your school?
Yeah, well, I give Mia a lot of credit. She's fierce too, and we met with Warden. Warden, to give him credit, he said, give me a challenge. And so he said, okay, here's our challenge, Warden. We want a couple of guys from this program out to come to Palma School and give a presentation in our chapel. And he oh, that's a challenge for sure. And next thing I know, he had all the suits in there. All these guys come in, different administrators from the prison. And they had their arms crossed and, oh, we can't do this kind of thing. But we persisted, Warden persisted, and then we had two fine men, Alfredo Ortega, we call him Freddie, and Jason Bryant, we've talked a lot about, come to Palma School. And we were told it's unprecedented. It hasn't happened in California, where lifers were able to get out of the facility to come speak at a school like this. it had to be cased. We had all these security people come out the day before. They were looking around our school. And the day this thing went down, there were all these vans of security that showed up. And then our students were treated to both Jason and Freddie speaking in our chapel, and they had to walk up to the podium, the lectern there, shackled, right? And these are guys we know. And these are guys our students had interacted with inside. And to see them shackled,
that was hard.
That was really hard, right? We know them as human beings. They came in like animals, shackled like that, and dragging their feet or whatnot with a look of fear on their face about all this. And it was a profound moment. They said profound things, right? And there's profound contrition too. You know, we work with, parents of murdered children. We have a relationship with Cheryl Ward, who lost her husband to murder. Her daughter was raped. She tells the story. She talks about forgiveness. She found it in her heart to forgive. You know, they're an essential piece of restorative justice too, that, they've experienced things that no heart should ever experience. And Jason and Alfredo talk openly about that. I don't have enough sorries in me. You know, we don't work with men who aren't taking responsibility. And so that's a lesson to our guys too, about own things, own them, right? That was a very profound day when they came in our chapel.
Yeah.
Perhaps we could show the video one day, or maybe after it airs on Lisa Ling's show This Is Life, on our Facebook and Instagram and YouTube account. You can find the Prison Post on YouTube, and also on Facebook, the Prison Post, and Crop Organization on Instagram, and Creating Restorative Opportunities and Programs on Facebook. Jim, Mia, thank you for sharing. What's next for you, though? What's next for you? We know that we're partnering with you. The Prison Post is sponsored by the Crop Organization, and we have definitely a business collaboration going on in Hope. And so, what's next? What's the latest?
The Zoom.
Well, we're Zooming. We'll be Zooming inside, and this supposedly is unprecedented too. We'll actually have access to our brothers in blue inside on camera in a Zoom.
A few of them
to begin with, but hopefully that will grow. And so the idea is, if we can have, again, Classroom of the World, if we can have classroom experiences inside, if that can take off at CTF Soledad, maybe some of the other yards, and then go to some other institutions. Salinas Valley has already expressed some interest in that. And then maybe we take it up to San Quentin. I know they have some wonderful programs going on there right now, but we can expand. And the idea is to have the friendship and mentorship and all that going on with the men inside, with boys who are becoming men, right? And then we need to look into young women, right? Girls becoming women in the women facilities. It's not just Jim Crow, it's Jane Crow too, right? We got to look out for everybody. The other thing too is this book. I know you're familiar with this book because your name's on it, and you did not ask me to do this. You wouldn't do that.
No way.
Men Built for Others, though, this is an exceptional book. Richard, you had a hand in this. So many of the guys we know created this. They're telling their stories about transformation, their stories about hope, faith, and peace. I've used this in class, and the funds for this go to Palma School to help students stay at Palma School or enroll in Palma School who might not have the money. You guys set up an incredible scholarship there, a foundation based on the proceeds from this book. So we want to get this book out there too, Men Built for Others. And have other schools consider using it in their curriculum. I'm working with another college prep right now who might be using this in their theology classes. We like to see it at universities because they are those tales of transformation and empathy. I mean, if you want to talk about empathy, right, this is the book that gets us there. So I want to thank you, Richard, personally for your work on this, all of Crop. You guys are nothing but hope and love. And we're so thankful to be in relationship with you.
Very much so.
Thank you. And it was four of our five directors put the book together, Men Built for Others. You can find it on Amazon, and Jim's right, Mia's right, that 100% of the proceeds from the book go to fund a scholarship at Palma School. And lastly, I would like to just invite you guys back to share the miracles that have taken place, at least two of them, with Sion and his dad, Frank Green. And we come back and share the Men Built for Others scholarship story, the vision that started with Ted, of creating the scholarship, and us asking you if you would be willing to go to your administrators and to your deans and presidents and take a shot to believe on us to be able to raise money from inside of a prison to fund a scholarship. And it's a profound story, but I'd love to have you guys back, maybe with the Greens, to share the whole story. Thank you so much.
So much to it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jim and Mia. This has been another episode of the Prison Post. We love you guys.
Love you too, man.
Love
Thank
you
you.
too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you for listening to the Prison Post, a production of the Crop Organization. We'll be sharing more stories from the world of prison reform and restorative justice, so please join us. You can listen to the Prison Post on all major podcasting platforms. Subscribe to our video cast on YouTube and like us on Facebook at The Prison Post and at Creating Restorative Opportunities and Programs.